Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another podcast. And firstly, a very happy Christmas to everybody. It's just in the run-up to Christmas here. It's a icy cold, crispy, frosty morning, a perfect Christmas morning, and I'm in search of a Christmas grayling. I've pushed up a little bit on the river today towards the town. There's quite a lot of water coming down. Actually, it's fairly high and a little bit coloured, so it's not going to be the easiest fishing today. But it's a beautiful misty morning, just looking up at the hillside here. Just great swathes of mist and fog, and it's crunchy underfoot. All the trees are bare, and it feels truly in the grips of winter. It's a perfect grayling morning, really, with the odd shaft of sunlight hitting the dew and the bits of frost left on the grass. I've brought the Euro nymphing outfit out today. I've not even bothered bringing a traditional river kind of outfit out with me. It's just going to be a case of getting the Euro nymph down today. I think it's going to be fairly tough. We'll see how we get on. River's very narrow where I've started here, just off the meadow. It's lots of trees, dense trees over the far bank. It's only about probably 10 foot across. It's deep and narrow. So with this much water in, really, it's just a case of will I get the flies down. So I've got the 11 foot 2-weight Nymph Maniac rod with some mono, about 2 foot of indicator material, indicator tippet. It's pink and green, and then I have about probably 5 foot of 3.8 pound breaking stream fluorocarbon, a couple of flies on, my Euro shrimp on the point, and the killer jig on the dropper, which is pretty much what I've been using all year, and I've yet not to catch, so I can't really see a reason to change. The only reason I might change the flies is if I feel like I'm not really getting down. So with the Euro nymph, it's just tapping up with the weight of the flies and then just sensing and keeping in contact with those flies and looking for the take. I say it's a stunning morning, so we'll just see if we can get going. So I'll start tapping this up and just see if they're going to get down for me. What I really want to do here is try and feel a bit of bottom, just to give me some confidence that I'm actually getting down to the bottom zone. Yeah, I think there's a touch of bottom there, so it might just be about getting down there. Yeah, that just dipped over there. That's good. So I don't think the fish are going to be in the riffles and the torrents today. I think it's just exploring some of the slack water. Just the river's been really high actually, so it's really pushed through and it's probably moved a few fish about. But if I can just get it into some of the slacker areas just off the current and just try and run it down those areas. Yeah, I've just picked up a bit of weed there, so that's just giving me the confidence that my nymphs are actually getting down. It's a stark difference. If you remember right, in the last podcast I was out chasing some grayling in just after the trout season had finished in kind of second week of October, and it was still like summer. We've got flies hatching and trout rising, and it was warm, whereas today as I'm talking now, I can see my breath, fingers are biting. But this is for me is perfect grayling conditions. I love being out when it's like this anyway. It's a beautiful time of year. It's very still today and nice and settled weather. Right, I'm just keep moving upstream. Like I say, the river's it's a narrow channel here. It is fairly deep. There's a cormorant just flying up the valley there. My hand's cold. I've only been fishing 5 minutes. Good. We are snagged up on the bottom, and it's come off, it's dipped off straight away, but I'm really happy about that. It just shows me that my flies are getting to a depth. I want to make sure that these are getting down nice and deep today. So with this Euro nymphing, it's, although we've got a sighter on there, I always like to make sure I'm feeling the take. So my line is between the tip of the rod and the nymphs is nice and straight, got contact with the flies, and I'm actually trying to sense the take. And the beauty of these rods is they're so sensitive that you will feel every little take. You even feel a leaf just nicking onto the fly under the water. My fingers are cold. Oh, there's a swan coming down here. He's seen me and decided to turn around. It really is one of them stunning winter days where it's kind of settled high pressure and it's very cold and frosty but still, and foggy with a bit of sun. The sun's lighting up all the kind of golds and greens and, you know, the colours of the riverbank. Right, I think I'll push up just round this vegetation, so just a case of winding in. As you can probably hear, I've just come up to near a cattle grid, so there's going to be the odd rumble of a truck and car just going over the cattle grid there. But it's a nice spot here, so I thought I'd start up here. It's really is quite a lot of water in the river, actually. More than I was expecting, to be honest. You can see on the bank where it's been right out and pushed the vegetation down quite a lot. Right then. Thought that might have been a little take there, but just nicked onto the bottom. And the swan's definitely interested in me. I wonder if it thinks I've got a sandwich for it. River's coming through at quite a pace here. I'm just trying to get the right line. I know there's a little shelf down here, and I just want to get it off that shelf. But with the higher water, it's just a little bit harder to find where it is. That's probably about right, just there. Nope, because I've just snagged up on the weed. Must have just hit it. Oh, I can see the shelf now. I've come round to get this snag off, and I can see it. Yeah, a bit of weed on the point fly there. The river is really coming down at a pace, actually. The colour's not too bad. It's got a little bit of colour left, but not too much. I just find that Grayling can just go off the boil a bit once the water first colours up. Right, I'll move up a bit. Just get up this vegetation. River's widened a bit now. Probably double the width it was there with the... It's about 20 feet across. I just want to try and, I think, hit some of that slightly slacker water. I'm not convinced entirely I'm getting deep enough here, so I'm going to have one more cast, and then I think I'm going to change my point fly to something with a bigger bead on it. I just don't feel like these nymphs are presenting properly. I think they're a bit too light for this swell, so let's just take that point off. And I don't feel like they're not anchoring, but I want that point fly to really steady the drift as it comes down and get down to that slower water towards the bottom. And at the minute I just feel that they're ripping through too quick. So I've got some nice big jigs here with large tungsten beads on. Let's get one of them on. It's one of them days where your fingers are too cold to handle these little flies and tie knots. So it took me about 4 attempts to get my fly tied on properly when I set up. Right, so the heavier fly is on. And let's see if that just anchors down a bit better. Yes, I'm happy with that already. A lot happier with that. I feel like I'm actually getting a drift as opposed to the flies just ripping through. What I want to do is get these flies down to the bottom third really, and so that the water's a bit slower down there, and without the drag of the fly line we should get a nice presentation. And I just feel like they're getting down now. It slowed it down a bit, and just I can feel it working down. It's a lot better. Yeah, just nudging the bottom there with the point fly, which is perfect. Lovely. Right, move up a little bit more. I've had a pretty good grayling season actually in terms of guiding. We've always caught with clients even in the tricky conditions, and we've had a few nice fish, a few 2-pounders, maybe a few that are slightly bigger. I never weigh them, so I'm not entirely sure, but can normally take a good guess using the length. That's been good. And we're in. We are in. That was a very subtle take. Oh, it's come off. Middle of the river, and just felt the rod tip. Wasn't a sharp bang, but felt it go over. Just a what's the word? Just a resistance. And what I tend to do when I'm Euro nymphing is every time I feel that resistance in the tip of the rod, I just do a little lift. And if it's the bottom, it just normally pings off. And then if it's a fish, you normally just feel the first little kick, and then you can continue with a bit of a lift just to set the hook. And that felt like a nice fish. Unfortunately for me, it came off. But it's a good sign, at least I find something feeding in this cold weather. And what I might do actually is just going to revisit that bit of the river further down where I was fishing with the lighter flies and just cover that again. It's probably worth it. Just to see if we can get them down and cover a fish down there. The sunlight's just striking the top of the hill now and lighting up some of the houses up there. Could be a almost a postcard scene this morning, really, with the river and the frost and the swans and the sun, the shafts of sunlight just glinting off the hill. Yeah, so I'm going to I'll finish this drift off here, and then I'm going to just nip down and just cover a little bit of the river that I fished before with the lighter flies, because this seems to be presenting a lot better. With the river being so high, it's one of those cases, and all the reeds and rushes that normally surround the river are all smashed down and died now. But you can't quite tell where the riverbank ends and the river begins. So I'm always I'm prodding with my foot slightly, because it's very easy to stand on something and actually it's a case of in you go. Right, let's try and get one out of that slack of water. That's it. That's a bit of weed there. So I love fishing these jig hooks. They lose hardly any flies. Everything just bounces off or pings off or cuts through. You rarely lose flies on the bottom. Mind you, this river's pretty good actually, because it's fairly gravelly and doesn't have any of those big kind of bedrocks and stuff like that, and it seems to be relatively free of branches and things under the water. Wagtail just streaking across the river there, didn't notice me, and made my cast and spooked it in mid-air, and it had to turn sharply and fly off. And there's quite a few birds out this morning. Actually, there's plenty of wagtails. Dippers are working hard, busying up and down the river. Right, let me see if I can just get a cast almost across to the other bank here. Not ideal, but there's some slack water across there, and I can just drop one on top of one. You never know. Yeah, there we go. Right on it there. Right, I think we'll have a move. Let's well, first off, let's sort my dropper out. That doesn't look too good. Right, so I'm just going to cover a little bit of that water I covered first thing, just with this heavier fly on. And just to redo a bit of leader that wasn't looking too happy. So let's try and drop a few into here. It's quite difficult here. There's lots of like trailing branches coming off the trees and stuff sticking up out the water, so it's very, very easy to snag. Right, let's have a bit of a walk, shall we? I've not fished down this little run here for a long time, so maybe we'll venture down there. Up over the stile. Ooh. Okay, and what I'm looking for again is some of the slightly slacker backwaters, really, not the main. There's a lot of water coming down. This looks like it's worth a shot. So watch for trees here, a bit more overgrown, lots of gnarly trees coming over the river here. Oh, that felt like a fish. Little hen pheasant behind me, just, oh, and it's off again, I don't believe it. That's two I've lost. I just got distracted, there was a clatter behind me and a hen pheasant just ran out from some cover, and I turned back round, the rod tip was going over, and I had a fish on briefly. Oh, there he goes. The river just sweeps round a bend here, and there's a nice wall on the far bank with a good current seam really racing round, but just off that there's a lovely bit of slacker water. That's the kind of place that I think is going to be a good shout today. Right, onwards and upwards. So what have I done? Lost a couple, and I think I've had a knock or two as well, but there is a spot just further up that I want to go and cover, so I'm going to spend the 5 or 10 minutes it takes, wander up there and see if I can connect with something up there, and then I think it'll be time for a cup of tea. Well, I've just had a 10-minute walk up to my favourite spot, and just on the way I thought I'd have a cast in a little pool just as I'm walking, and I'm into a fish now, but it's off again, I don't believe it. That was a decent fish. It's like I'm having one of them days. I was just going to say, I'm into a fish now. I've been playing it for 15-20 seconds because it took as soon as I made my cast in, and unfortunately as soon as I mentioned I got a fish on, things come off. It took me for a bit of a swim over towards the far bank, and I'm half wondering whether it actually managed to wrap me around a little obstruction because the line just went a bit odd. Well, at least I'm getting into a few. That's all you can ask for really on these lovely winter days, and eventually one will stick. But again, just in this slacker water. Let me just check my flies. Yeah, flies are fine. That felt a really good fish, that did. I'm not even at my favourite spot. I've got a real favourite spot further up the river, and that's where I'm going to try and head to now. Alright, let's keep walking up. I've had days like this before, plenty of times, especially with grayling, where they just will not stick, and then you'll come out, same flies, same tackle, and you'll hook and net every single one and won't lose a fish. Just sometimes the way things go. Same with fishing a dry fly for grayling. There's times when you'll get rise after rise after rise after rise and nothing will connect. It always seems to be a certain time of year in these smaller grayling, and you'll get times where you just hit everything. Right, lots of nice river here, but it's fairly shallow and fast and gravelly, so there's not really any slacker bits, so to speak. There's a very deep run just up here, which always holds a few fish, so I'm going to start in there, I think. It's about a 10-15 minute walk to get up here from where I was, but it's just for maybe 10 minutes of fishing, but it's always worth it because there's stacks of fish up here normally. So the great thing about the Euro nymph is you can fire it across the river with a nymph on, and because there's no fly line, it's not going to drag. So even fishing square across, you don't need to mend. You just get a really good drift, a good presentation of the fly. You'd never be able to do this with conventional fly tackle. It's just an advantage. And when you're fishing from the bank like this, and you're not wading, so you can't adjust your angle like you can when you're wading to get a good upstream cast. You fix on the bank, so you've always got that across stream problem, and it just solves it, which is, I think, why it's so successful on this river for Grayling. Looking fine. Still got my heavy jig on the point, and then a smaller one on the dropper there. That's really hurtling through here. This is going to be difficult in this run. I'll give it a go. It might just come down too quickly here, I think. Yeah, it's just ripping through even with this heavy fly on. There's a bit of slack water just at this near bank, sorry. Maybe worth just seeing if I can get one into that. No, I think this is probably coming down a little too fast here to fish it. And the thing about this is a very even current all the way across. It's only, what is it here, 20 foot across. But a lot of this river will have like bubble streams and current seams and little eddies and slack patches. Whereas this is pretty even, it's all coming down at a pace. So I'll have a few in here, but I'm not too hopeful actually now I've seen it. There is another little run further up which is a bit shallower, so that might be my saving grace. We'll just have to see. I think there'll be fish in here, but I think they'll be sheltering right down, and I ain't going to get down to them in this flow, I don't think. No, it's not going to happen there. I've been watching the river level on the graph actually online, and it really came up fairly high above its normal range. And I was just speaking to one of the locals just on my way up here, and they were saying it's been really high. Right, well, I've walked upstream, come across the bridge, come back down the other side of the run I was just fishing, because the water's a little bit more slack over here. So I'm just going to see if there's anything in this slightly slacker water, because I'm yet to have my Christmas grayling. Right. Just have to be careful I don't end up in the tree here. I'm getting the flies in, but not really anything happening. I think it's probably has just pushed them out. This quick water coming through has just pushed these grayling out of this, and this is normally fantastic for them. So a couple more casts and then I'm going to wander down and just concentrate on any of the slightly slacker bits of water as I head down. Here we go. You can really see where this river's been up. It's ever so boggy. It's washed through and deposited a lot of rubbish and silt and mud. Let me squeeze through here. Right, again, there's a bit of slacker water over this bank, so I'll try dropping one or two in here, but I don't know if I can even get a cast out. Just about. It's going to be tricky. Yes, I'm in. Just where I'd hoped, just in the slack water now. Is this one going to come off? No. I've got as far as getting the net out. Nice fish. Yes, it's in the net, and the water is in my welly, but it's all worth it. Fantastic. I've got me Christmas grayling. It's £1.5 that, so not a bad fish at all, and it's very kindly, as they often do, unhooked itself in the net, so I can drop this one back. Lovely. There we go. Well, that took a bit of work today. I mean, I thought it would, but it just would not stick. But I just dropped it in the slack and it took straight away. Alright, unhook the landing net now. And now hopefully, if the fishing gods very nicely, there'll be another one down there just in the same spot. So let's put that fly straight back out there. And it's exactly the same spot. And see, there's another one. So where I'm fishing now is one of my favourite spots, and I fished it earlier on the podcast, but I said it's thundering through. There we go, in again straight away. It's thundering through, but I could just see that on this bank there was a nice bit of slack water. This is just a tiddler, so I can hook him straight away, but we don't weigh them in this game. Oops. There you go, drop him back. That was just a little fingerling as it were, but oh, and again, and it's off. That was just a head shaken off straight away. I don't think that I'd taken it properly. Right, a couple more casts. I'm running it down exactly the same line here, but I'm just going to try and maybe push it out another foot. Oh, dipped over the rod there. No, nothing at home there. Well, the sky's beginning to darken a touch and I can certainly feel it getting chilly, so I'm going to call it a day, and I've got exactly what I came for, which was just one. Well, I've had two actually, haven't I? A decent one and a tiddler, but a nice grayling at Christmas time, and I've lost 4 or 5 as well and had a couple of knocks, so all in all beautiful winter's day. Couldn't ask for more. Thank you so much for listening. For more information on our guided fly fishing or fly fishing lessons, it's www.peaksflyfishing.com. And for our premium flies and tackle and fly tying materials, it's shop.peaksflyfishing.com. Until next time, bye bye.